Good morning. This is Chris Schlutt from Wisconsin Land and Water, and we would like to get started with our webinar this morning. Our first presenter is Ben Wojahn, Assistant County Conservationist in Vernon County. And if you would like to ask any questions during Ben's presentation, you can just send him a message in the chat or unmute yourself. And I think we're ready to go. Ben, if you'd like to take it away, please.
Great. Good morning. Thanks everyone for joining us. And this is the first webinar I've ever done, so it's a little hard to not see people's responses. If you're enjoying it or hating it, feel free to send me smiley faces as we progress or whatever you're able to do. But yes, I am Ben Wojahn. I'm the Assistant County Conservationist with Vernon County. I have about 10 years of experience working with land and water conservation departments, and most of that career has been here in Vernon County. I was also in Taylor County and Medford for a while, and up in Ashland when it was Ashland, Bayfield, Douglas, and Iron. Here in Vernon County, we have a very large Amish community, actually multiple communities throughout the county, including the area between Pasture and Ontario, which is on the Vernon and Monroe County borders, and that is considered the largest Amish community in Wisconsin. In this presentation, I will be talking about pointers with working with Amish, but I will also cover some tips that should apply to a majority of the landowners that we deal with. And I did try to keep my presentation brief, so 20 minutes is a pretty short amount of time, so if you have any specific questions, please don't hesitate. Chris, are you asking them to save them for the end or at any time? Well,
excuse me, what was your question, Ben?
Oh, questions at the end or just at any time?
It's up to you. You could, yeah, the best way to do it is to just type them in the chat, and if you have one during the presentation, or feel free to ask as soon as he's finished, whichever works the best for you.
Great, thanks. So I don't think that I know anything more than anyone listening today. I think we all have different experiences to bring to the table. And one tip I would say is never pretend to know more than you do working with any type of landowner. They will probably be able to tell. So it's just very important to play to your own strengths and be honest when you don't know something. One key, I feel, to working with landowners is to have empathy, putting yourself in their shoes and taking the time to find out what drives them, what makes them tick. Even if you are not able to help them with a specific issue, still show that you care, still show that you have empathy. Even if it is not your job, can you find a way to help this landowner? Can you be a general resource for them? In this day and age, we're struggling with UW extension agents, and often landowners really don't know the difference between any of these agencies. So I find it's good to not say it's not my job, and at least always be a resource or a point person for any landowner, whatever their situation is. The key is to really appeal to emotions. So with Amish, as well as with most people, there may be a background religion or set of beliefs. And really, most religions and backgrounds place an importance on land ethic, on land stewardship, on doing what is right for your environment and your surroundings. That emotional tie can often be emphasized when working with folks. Again, what motivates them? So large number of landowners, the vast majority, are, what is the average age? 60, 65 years old. So many of them are thinking about retirement. And they're thinking about maybe they want their children to take over the farm, how to keep the farm in the family. So just knowing those motivations are really critical to how landowners are going to respond. What makes the landowner tick? Getting to know the goals of the producer everyone is thinking about the financial bottom line, so that's a big driver. Some people have more of an environmental ethic than others, but that can be really important. Wildlife, fish, recreation, that often is a motivator for folks. Again, the next generation who's going to be taking over the land, who's going to be taking over the farm. A lot of our older farmers who do have a strong conservation ethic are very, very concerned on what things are going to look like when they're gone. Oh, and hoping to impress the girl down the road. Now that may be more of a motivator for our younger generation. Let's see here. The bottom line, though, for basically everyone is money. Can you make money at farming? There's no way around it. Sustainability has to have a financial element to it. So just remember that bottom line, whether it's cost of a conservation practice, whether it's to make a new investment in the farm or not, if they don't believe the bottom line is going to work and that it's not going to be financially viable, then you really should not be trying to talk any landowner into making a decision that's going to hurt their bottom line. Then I would say be as flexible as you possibly can, and landowners really do respond well to that, knowing that you're doing what you can to work within the system to make it work for them. Also, don't be afraid to draw your line in the sand. Be very flexible where you can be, but be very clear where you cannot be. There's often certain rules and regulations that we just do not have flexibility on. And so be clear, be upfront, lenient whenever possible, but, rules say we have to do this, and just be clear with them. The more upfront you are, the less surprises there are down the road, the better. Just take the time to explain what the process is going to be. So whether that's cost share, whether you're assisting with NRCS programs, I guess I've seen a lot of people kind of be unrealistic and say, oh yeah, we'll help you get the barnyard in by the end of the month, or we'll help you do this project in no time. In reality, that's really not how things typically work. I'm very upfront. Let them know it's a slow process. They'll be hurry up and sign this, and then wait. And it can be a tedious project. Just always have a realistic timeline for them. And I think this is extremely difficult for us. We have to resist the urge to become a program pusher. We all have deadlines. We all have funding that we need to get spent by a certain time. But I think when that's what motivates us, we often lose sight of the conservation goals and what the goals of the landowner we are working with. So you're probably always going to have pressures in your career to just push the cost share, push the programs. But as much as possible, if you can resist that, that's strongly encouraged. I find landowners like when you admit that government money has strings attached. They all pretty much assume that anyways. The strings might not be very bad, but any type of regulation, any type of rules, just simply meeting our standards, a lot of landowners will view that as string attached to government money. So be upfront, don't deny that that's going on, but also don't let them get scared away by, I think a lot of landowners and farmers who haven't worked with our programs assume that strings are overburdensome or that they're hidden, and just make sure you don't hide any of those and you're very clear what those, quote, strings could be. I spend quite a bit of time sort of testing landowners or even talking them out of signing up for programs. Most of my landowner presentations have a nice little section that's why EQIP may not be right for you. NRCS at times might get a little bit upset at me doing this, but I think actually they appreciate it because I take the time to explain that equip is not right for everybody. So if you're not patient, if you don't really need the money, if you don't want to meet the standards, maybe you're better off doing things on your own and not getting cost share. We often hear that our standards are overbuilt. Well, if that is the case, I encourage folks to do it on their own. And don't spend a lot of time worrying about that. We're there to assist them, not to force the programs down their throat. And being flexible is taking these programs, whether it's our share funding or other programs we're dealing with, think of where these programs came from. And that's what the farmers are thinking too. They came out of Washington, D.C., or they came out of Madison. And our goal is really to make these programs that were made up in the political realm and help them fit into the real world where they actually have to happen on the ground so that we can have the benefits to the landowner and the environment that we're all trying for. I really like the term subversive conservationist, and to me that means doing the most that you can for conservation and for that landowner. Working within the rules that we have, but maybe stretching those rules as far as you possibly can in order to make good works happen. That was a little general advice on working with landowners. Now I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about Amish specifically. And anything you think you know about Amish is probably generally true, but probably not always true. And really working with Amish is not as different as you think. Again, finding out what motivates them, their goals, what they want, is very, very similar to working with any type of landowner. They call us English, by the way. There's Amish and there's English. So just remember that, and remember they don't practice daylight savings time. So if you do ever make an appointment, you may want to be sure if they mean their time or our time, and that can get a little bit confusing. Or if you plan an event, don't be surprised if everyone shows up about an hour late. But working with the Amish community, we are dealing with varying levels of education and varying levels of belief in science. Of course, that happens with English landowners as well. And I think you may find that some Amish are extremely well-read and extremely knowledgeable, at least on the topics of interest that they have. There's an importance of pride, public image, what others think of you, neighbor peer pressure. Again, these are all things that happen in the English world, but these definitely motivate Amish as well. And then there is a strong benefit whenever you're dealing with a community to having longevity in your career. It's very difficult. It's really difficult for NRCS soil cons, and I'd say it's fairly difficult for a lot of land conservation folks as well to stay in one place. You probably can't do that for your entire career, but I strongly encourage trying to do it for as long in your career as possible, because earning trust takes a long time no matter what community you're working with, probably even more so in the Amish community. You need to build that relationship. You need to get referred to by others, to their neighbors, to their friends, who all talk. If you're just hopping from job to job, you are going to really struggle to establish a relationship within a community. I have real quick a couple comments that I've recently heard from Amish that at least made me surprised or made me giggle. One Amish said to me the other day, I came home and my wife surprised me with twins the other day. A common question is, did you bring your GPS with you? I've recently been asked, can you check the weather on your phone for me? And then one that has really been surprising me is, I need to get my power saw in before the rain comes. So there are rules, right? And we assume these rules are universal. They are generally true, but almost all rules have exceptions. no electricity, well, I've seen exceptions to that. Limiting the use of phones, not using motor vehicles. Wearing specific styles of dress is certainly true. Not buying insurance is usually true. Not receiving any form of government welfare, that could be argued. Not serving in the military, marrying within their community, only being schooled up, well, this says 8 years, but that should be the 8th grade. Most of them just complete the 8th grade of education. They do use corporal punishment, and they certainly practice considerable manual labor. So these rules are very fluid, ever-changing, and that all comes down to the role of the bishop or the individual church district that they're part of. Every individual community, based on the bishop, has a wide range of what they can and cannot do, and it varies considerably, and it changes fairly regularly. It's very fluid, it's not static. The area of Pasture, for example, has 13 different church districts who all have slightly different rules, though generally the neighboring communities there are similar, but there's quite a bit of difference between Pasture and Hillsborough. Hillsborough, for example, can use solar electric fencing, which makes a big difference for grazing farming. And of course, just like all of us, it depends on who's watching. Some of these rules apply, but if your wife is there or isn't there, or your bishop is there or isn't there, may have a difference on what decisions you make. So, will Amish use electric fence? Will they use internet? Do they drink beer or chew tobacco or use power tools? Will they use pesticides or are they organic? And the answer to that is it depends, it depends, it depends, it depends. And those answers change depending on your community and your individual. As we are all individuals, they are as well. Reminder is taking pictures. You must be very sensitive. Always ask, do not take pictures of their face. But really, those are important reminders for any community that you may work with, but Amish are particularly sensitive to that. So there are some types of assistance Amish are likely to take and some that they are very unlikely to take. So focus on building trust by giving the type of assistance that they feel most comfortable with. Recommendations on seeding mixes. They really love farm maps. Writing grazing plans. If they see they can get more out of their pastures, they respond really well to that. Hosting different field days is an excellent way for getting a large group of Amish attendees to all come in. A lot of times they'll sign up for further assistance when we make that initial contact. Pasture walks, great tool for recruiting, sharing, creating kind of that community of knowledge and building upon partnerships. We also provide rides to field days often. We help interpret soil samples, which they respond very well to. Weighing manure spreaders is an excellent way to gain street cred with any type of farmer. Just get yourself elbow deep right in there and help them take a manure sample, and people seem to respect you after that. Marking contour strips, they're happy to get that type of assistance. You have to be a little careful when you're telling people you're going stripping for the Amish. In this case, it was an organic certifier who pushed the Amish to do more conservation work and encouraged them to get contour strips marked for them. Ways of contacting the Amish can be challenging. After years of working with them, we do have many of their names on our Pasture Walk mailing list. Here we have Organic Valley and another local cheese factory that takes Amish milks in cans. So they're great for working with. They'll let us do mailings through them to their producers. Also, most Amish communities have a newspaper that they have no problem with us placing ads in. It's usually about $1 or a couple of dollars. So if you have a meeting or an event that you want them to attend, it's good to have someone you work with within that community even though we have put the ads in directly ourselves, otherwise they can put the ad in for you. It is really, it's word of mouth, working with a couple of community members, and whether it all happens on Sunday or when it occurs, they certainly do talk and communicate about things going on. And then, of course, many Amish will call from a neighbor's phone, or up in on Chaseburg Ridge here, there's the phone company put in a central phone, so it's not uncommon that you'll get calls from Amish if they're seeking your assistance for something. But of course, it's very difficult for you to contact them through phone. So again, we only have 20 minutes. It's been very brief. In general, once a community has decided that you provide a lot of valuable resources, you will find that more and more folks from that community continue to contact you and ask for assistance. And the Amish referral system just kind of keeps happening. They keep coming back once they find out they've got maps. We've helped them talk about soil samples. We've helped them with strips. We've helped them with seeding mixes. They like different events you posted. So I'll recap just, oh yeah, and make sure you follow through on commitments and appointments. Don't commit if you do not have the time, and always make that clear. It's way better to let people know that you're just not going to be able to get to them for a while than to overcommit and not follow through. And just recap a little bit, get to know the goals of the producer. Take the time to listen. Are those goals financial, environmental? Is it wildlife? Is it maybe the next generation or that farm transition? Are they hoping to impress the girl down the road? And do not assume that you know more than they do. We all have different experiences and come from different perspectives. Very much you need to value the opinion and the understanding of the individual landowner. Have empathy and try to put yourself in their situation as much as possible. That's going to help you understand how to work with them. The more you listen, the better. And I'm quite a talker myself, so I have to remind myself, listen, listen, listen. It is very valuable. And also, be careful who the decision maker is, or there might be many influences on who's making the decisions. It could be the wife, it could be the grandpa, it could be the child or the next generation. There may be more than one decision maker or more than one voice that needs to be listened to. Keep the message positive whenever possible. Even if you have conservation issues, you can still turn it into how things can get better soon, how things can be positive. A morel mushroom is a positive image for me, so that's why I use that. And take time to remember what you are doing and what you are trying to protect, and also what the landowner is doing and what they are trying to protect. Lakes and streams, it might be fish populations, it might be recreation, clean water, where your children swim, where you like to have fun, where you like to spend your 4th of July, and of course your own well and the water you drink out of. So I think I am going to leave it there. I don't know, Chris, if you want to open it up for questions, or we can wait
Sure.
until the end.
If anyone has any questions for Ben, please feel free to write it out in the chat to everyone so they can see the question. And at this time, I'm going to switch over the presenter. Our next presenter is Ying Vang, a soil conservationist from NRCS. So I'm going to make him the presenter right now and get his screen up there. So Okay, great. You can see your screen. Everything looks fine. We'll let Kai start. And like I said, if you have any questions for Ben or as this goes along, feel free to write it in the chat area. Thanks.
Okay, not hearing any questions. I'm going to start the presentation. Can everybody hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So my name is Ka Vang. I work with NRCS. I was one of my collateral duty with NRCS was working with the Asian population here in Wisconsin. I've been doing that for 7 years, and I just hang up the hat, and somebody else ended up taking that position now. So I'm just going to share a little bit about my experience working with the Hmong population here in Wisconsin. But it's more related to pretty much all the Wisconsin, the Asian group. But the biggest population here in Wisconsin is for Asian is Hmong, so we're mainly going to focus on that. So we're going to look at just farming practices within the Hmong community, and also some of the barriers that they face when it comes to government programs. And this is a slide that I took out of a Hmong HND article on the state of the Hmong in the United States. And looking at the Hmong population here in the Midwest, if you look at just the top 17 areas within the Midwest, you can see the list. Well, of the 17, 13 of those cities or areas are located in Wisconsin. Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul is probably listed at the top, but the whole state of Minnesota, everybody's all congregated in St. Paul. But if you look at Wisconsin, the Hmong population is spread out throughout the whole state of Wisconsin. So knowing that, a lot of you are from different parts of Wisconsin, I know for sure you may run into a lot of these producers in your areas. If you have farmers market, if you go to it, you'll find out that majority or a good portion of those vendors are of Hmong producers, or Hmong farmers. So this is to show that yes, there is a need for government agency to reach out to this small group, but permanent group of individuals or clients that we have out there protecting our resources, natural resources, farming in a way that will protect our environment. So this is another group that for sure every one of us in Wisconsin end up having to run across at one point in our career for sure. So before we go into looking into how we can help, we have to understand the farming practices, what kind of crops what type of crops do they grow? Understand the farming background. So we have to ask ourselves, what type of crops are grown out there for this community? And how are the crops grown? A lot of our programs depends on the practices. A lot of practices that through the growing programs helps through the type of crops that's out there, how the crops are grown, and then where the crops are grown also determines a lot of the practices as well. Putting contour strips on, is it on a hill? Is it on the flat ground? So we have to do subsurface stream, things like that. So understanding where the crops are grown and timing of the crops. A lot of these crops are grown. We don't have the growing season for a lot of these crops. So understanding the kind of crops that they grow and how can we extend that season for them. Looking at seasonal height tunnel, looking at ways that we can improve how they grow their crop, and then give them extra time to take that crop into maturity. and looking at the farm sizes as well. A lot of these farms are fairly small, which we're going to get to a little bit, but understanding the size of the farm also dictates, the practices or the conservation techniques that we're going to be using to help these farmers. And also understanding the resources on the farm. I think Ben kind of touched up on that a lot of the stuff that he said and a lot of stuff that I'm going to be saying is you can probably use not just Hmong or Amish, but you can probably use for almost every producers out there. Understanding that these concepts will determine what kind of practices we use to achieve the landowners' objectives. So first, let's look at different kind of crops that are grown within the Hmong community. And I don't know if a lot of you have gone to a Hmong garden or a farm, but you realize that there's a lot of different kind of crops. It's not just corn, soybeans, oats, wheat, winter wheat, things like that. It's a lot of vegetable crops, a lot of different kinds. So we got, for this one, I'm just going to go through some of the ones that are a little bit less common that you will see out there. This one is a bok choy. Bitter melon is also a crop that was grown. Eggplant, lemongrass, lofa, or a lot of the gourds. This is a specialty beans or asparagus beans or long beans. And hot peppers, a lot of chili peppers, a lot of different kinds of mustard that's grown in the Hmong community. A lot of herbs as well. This is cilantro, and then basil. Lots of basil, the Thai basils. So understanding that these are some of the crops that are grown out there. And then how are those crops grown? We can see for this example, the crops are grown kind of intermixed into each other. We got mustard growing right next to onions, growing right next to nightshade. They use nightshade as a tea in that community. So how they grow their crops, and that could be a challenge for us if we're looking at how do we deal with weed management or pest management then, looking at pests. How do we, chemical-wise, are we going to spray like a brown leaf, or we're going to kill all those? We spread a grass, or we're going to kill, if they have lemongrass growing out there, we're going to kill that as well. So understanding what kind of crops are grown, how they're grown, kind of determines, okay, maybe we should switch our practices so that we fit the landowners' objective or fit their farming operations. And this is just another picture of how a lot of these crops are grown. It's all kind of a jungly mess, if you can kind of get the idea. It's beans. There's beans growing right next to peppers, right next to corn, and then going back to beans, going back to eggplant. So it's just a mixture of all these different kinds of crops, kind of all intermixed within a small plot of land. And you're going to eventually I'll get to the point of that, why all those are growing like that as well. But another system that's used out in the Hmong community is trellis. And looking at the trellis system, you can kind of see, what is our resource concern within, looking at that picture. There's, probably 80% or 90% of the ground is pretty bare, and there's not much topsoil left on that ground. So what kind of resources, practices, or concerns that we can address, looking at the trellis system, looking at different kind of practices that we have, for government programs, how can we help this particular landowner and explain to them that, what can we do to improve the soils, at the same time improve the yield as well, understanding crop rotations, things like that. And looking at the trial system too. How if we're going to implement any kind of practices that may involve machinery, how the machinery is going to get through all these, generally mess of strings or sticks that are put up as trellis system. So understanding how they farm kind of dictates to us what kind of practices we should be looking at. Farm size, a lot of the Hmong community, the farm size is very, very small. Being very hard to find a farm that's more than 20 acres in size. If it is, it's usually broken up into a lot of little small plots. So one family may have, half an acre. There may be 20, 30 families farming in this bigger plot or bigger farm of 20 acres. So a lot of the farms are very, very small, and a lot of them are mostly rented grounds. A lot of Hmong communities, they live in the city, but they have a little plot outside of town to do their garden and to do their farming. And then looking at equipment. The picture we see up on the screen is pretty much, I would say majority of the farmers and the Hmong farmers you'll see, that's the kind of equipment that they have, on their farm. The biggest machinery they have is maybe a roller tiller. And then the rest are done by, hoes, axes, knives, things like that. And mostly just the hoes that they use out in the field for weed control, for tilling, for any kind of farming practices that we may think of. It's all done by hand. A lot of, kind of like the Amish, there's a lot of manual labor involved when it comes to farming within the Hmong community. So knowing what we know now, what are the barriers what are some of the barriers that limits the Hmong farmers to go into government programs? Look at practice limitations. Looking at the farm sizes again. Practices, cover crops. Imagine doing a contract for cover crop or a contract for no-till on a quarter acre in size. It makes no sense. The practice still is needed in that tiny little half an acre or quarter acre. It definitely does help. The same principle apply whether you have 1,000 acres or half an acre. The same principle apply, but when it comes to government programs, trying to get these individuals to come in, it's just impractical to contract or to have them come in and do an application for something that small of a size. So the practice limitation is something that within the Hmong community, government program just seems impractical on a lot of the practices out there. Looking at the languages as well, I would say majority of the Hmong population, farming Hmong populations, a lot of the farmers are probably in the age of 45, 50 or up. You don't have a lot of the younger operation younger farmers anymore. So a lot of these older generations looking at their language, a lot of them don't speak that language, speak English. So trying to explain programs to them is very, very hard. It's almost impossible to get that language across. A lot of the languages that we have don't, in the Hmong culture, we don't even have words for some of the languages that we have for some of the practices that we do. So trying to explain a practice that, in the Hmong community, we don't have a word for. That's very, very hard. So that's one of the various challenges to government programs. Access to programs as well. A lot of these communities are kind of pretty tight. Just sticking to what they know in that community and not venturing out to other as well. So having not knowing that there is government agency out there that are wanting to help, that have the resources, have Pasture available to help that farm, or to help them improve the resources on their farm. They don't know that there's practices or Pasture or agencies that are out there that exist to help them. So getting the programs out to them is a barrier that still exists within the Hmong community. Again, I talk about size. The size of those farms is just almost impractical to implement some of the programs as well. Looking at FSA crop, when I say FSA crop insurance, a lot of that are insurance are based on crop. And a lot of these small community, they have, when they do the gardens, they have 20, 30 different kind of crops. So trying to insure each of the crops is impractical as well. So the size of the farm kind of dictates, what the programs that could be available to the Hmong community as well. Control of land is the other barriers. A lot of these, like I said, a lot of Hmong farmers, they rent their land, kind of a year-to-year lease. And some of the programs that we have require multiple years of leases on there. So that limits them out of the program altogether. So trying to overcome that. This next slide talks about how can we break down those barriers. What can we do as government agency so that we can break those barriers and get these conservation practices out to that community. The practice limitation, instead of focusing on just cover crop or just no-till, let's do a system, focus on the system approach instead of one particular practices. Maybe do cover crop, crop rotations, no-till, nutrient management, and combine a system into a small plot, and that makes it more a little bit more incentive for a smaller guy to come in and actually apply for cost sharing, or to help them better their farm in a system way instead of just a little piece at a time. The language part of it is basically, there's no way around getting a translator if they can't understand the languages. Getting an interpreter. We're translating a lot of our documents, program documents, into Hmong or into the languages that you're working with. Or the best thing is having a staff that could speak that language, that understands the role of conservation, and then explain that to that community is probably your highest value for that community. And the access to programs, connecting with local, a lot of the, wherever there is among populations, there usually is a Hmong association or services towards that community, and trying to connect to those leaders. Those leaders are what bridges you to those farmers. So connecting to the leaders, and then the leaders will connect you to those farmers, those community members that does a lot of these farming practices. So connecting to those services is a key to getting your programs out to that community. Looking at size, I haven't found a way to break that barrier of size, because it's something physical that cannot can't tell them to go in and find bigger. It's impractical. So let's get over to control of land. A lot of if they can't go for a long-term contract, looking at practices that are short-term, that are for year to year, and maybe those may be much better fit for that community if they're renting land and they only have 1 year rental. Finding practices that will only last a year, so that we don't have to deal with a lengthened contracts. So, and this presentation, I did it once, and it's supposed to last, 2.5 hours, but I'm going to condense it down to, just 20 minutes. So it's going to be pretty fast, and I'm going to, pretty skip a lot. There'll be a lot of them that's been skipped over. But this last slides basically kind of puts everything together. The Kim Young, he's at the Farm Food Co-op in Milwaukee, and he has worked with a lot of the Hmong producers in that community. And what he found out is, that there's a lot of the customers or a lot of the vendors that provide him with these vegetables are Hmong farmers. So we decided to go out and take a look at how they farm. And what he sees is, like what I said before, the farm is almost like a jungly mess. And it's peppers growing with beans, with corns, with sorghums, eggplants. It's all intermixed within there. There's lettuce and mustard, peas, all intermixed. And he's like, why? It's so hard to manage this way. Why are the Hmong doing it like that? He realized that looking at the equipment, they don't have big tractors. Why do you need rolls? If you don't have tractors to go and then you roller tiller through the roads, you will need rolls for your vegetable crops. And having all these different crops all kind of planted all intermixed, he realized that there's a lot of pest control that you can do. Not putting your all one eggs in one basket. If you plant a lot of beans all in one, pests is kind of like humans as well. We like all you can eat buffet, and when we have this big buffet there, we're going to go at it and end up destroying a lot of that crop. So by planting it kind of all intermixed, one here, one there, at least if one is gone, at least the other will survive, and realize that it works. In a small scale, like the Hmong community, a lot of these planting, it looks so chaotic, but it works because of the equipment, the resources that they have out on the farm. Except they don't need tractors. They can use their little holes. They don't need a nice straight roll. They don't have to be any roll out there at all. They can go into the anywhere and just weed out the weeds. And he realized a lot of the farmers, they depending on what they have, they use it to the best of their advantage. And understand that it's not it's not the conventional way that we see. We see a lot of the bigger farmers, how they farm, and then now looking at the little guys, we have to switch our train of thought and say, hey, this is totally different, and you don't try to fit the practices that would go with a big farmer to a little guy like that. Our train of thought has to be shifted. And also, one thing that he also found out is, a lot of these Hmong farmers, they go out and they sell the farmers at a farmer's market. The whole entire produce for that day may be only $150, but they sit there the whole entire day. So he asked himself, why? Why do you sit there all day, and if you sell everything, you're only getting, let's say, 150? And he realized it's not about money a lot of the times. A lot of these rural farmers, that farming is in their blood. That's where, when they come from, farming is just a way of life. Coming over to this country, that way of life has diminished. That way of life is gone. So having a little plot outside, outside of the city, for them to go out and practice what they have done in the past, it's a way of stress reliever. It's for them to, as exercise for a lot of older folks, for them just to be outside. It's just an opportunity for them to meet other other members of the community. You know, going out to farmers market, it's a way for them to meet you know, their friends. It's a way to meet their relatives that comes to the farmers market. So it's not all about money. There's a lot, you know, we as agency people, we look at, you know, the SWAPA, you know, your soils, your water, your animals, your plants, but we tend to miss the H part, the human aspect of it, you know, the SWAPA plus H, and we tend to miss that H, and this is what it comes in. A lot of these, you know, smaller farmers, they do allow this because of health reasons. They do allow this because, you know, it's healthy for them to get out. It's a stress reliever for a lot of these smaller farmers. You know, they do it because it releases stress, and they don't have to involve around money. So having that understanding, maybe, you know, what we do out, you know, not to focus so much on numbers. That our agency has been pushing on us and say, hey, you got to get this amount of contracts, you got to get this amount of, you know, acres. You know, within that community, it doesn't work that way. You know, it's about the people. It's about the health of those producers that you're working with. So this is a way to kind of fit that H into that SWAPA plus H of our conservation goals here. So to leave, I'll give this a technical report. This is done back in 1997, working effectively with Asian and Hispanic limited resource farmer and rancher. Let me end the slide here and then show you the this document. Can everybody see this document?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so this document was done back in 1997, you know, looking at how we can, as an agency, can outreach or get the word out to limited resource farmers and ranchers, specifically for Asian and Hispanics. And it goes through a list of questions about how we do it. It's almost like a step-by-step plan. Like how do you identify their farms? You know, what type of farms are there? What kind of ethnic groups? The size. You know, do they know who you are? You know, do you know their written and writing skills? The practices. You know, the cultural and farming practices of your targeted groups. And who are those leaders within those communities? Do you know their farming backgrounds? So it just goes through a list of questions that we may not think of when we're working with this group of individuals, this group of populations. And then at the end, it kind of gives you a kind of a plan on how to basically how to outreach to these groups, and not to use, you know, languages that may offend those groups as well. So this is pretty much, you know, my whole 2-hour presentation is usually a lot of them comes from this report right here. So if you need, if anybody wanted to get this report, I'm going to send it to Chris, and then you can Chris can distribute it out to all of you. And it's a great report, you know, if you're working with any of the historical underserved populations in Wisconsin. So I'll end my presentation with this, and if anyone has any questions, you can ask at this time.
Okay, thanks, Ka. If you'd like to send a message on the chat, go ahead and do that, or you can unmute yourself. I do have one question that we received in the chat that was for Ben, where she was asking, sometimes the Amish men, especially the older ones, have issues with having to deal with women. Do you have any tips for us on how to tackle that challenge when they want to talk to a man, but there's only, quote, us lowly women on the job? Ben, can you address that question, please?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It is very real in this community, and it's kind of hard to change people's opinion. You could try dressing up as a man. I don't know that that would work, but that's just a suggestion. Otherwise, I think just, if they want to work with you, they will. I remember Kelly Jacobs and Gene Stramel with NRCS both doing an excellent job. They really just never seem to have any trouble. They're both very knowledgeable individuals, and so they were clear about their information. From what I saw, the communities were very receptive. The old order ones, though, especially the ones in the Pasture area, are more hesitant. I've also talked with quite a few organic certifiers in the area, and they kind of don't give them a choice. If they need the assistance, they have to work with who they have to work with. I was actually just talking to organic certifiers last night about it. In their situation, it's a little different because the Amish need to maintain their organic certification, so they're just going to deal with it. In our situation, they don't necessarily need to work with us, so they may at times choose not to. You're probably not going to change an entire culture or their beliefs, but in general, I think the younger ones are more receptive, and once they see that you're a knowledgeable individual, I think they do an okay job, most of them, looking past that.
Okay, thanks, Ben. If anyone has any other questions, you could unmute yourself and ask the question for either Ben or Ka. I'll give you a minute here. If I don't hear from anyone, then we'll wrap it up.
I would probably add that finding your champions within a community, that's true for English farmers, it's true for Amish farmers. Similar to the presentation on the Hmong farmers, a lot of small-scale vegetable production with that actually can be very highly erosive. A lot of them use excessive amounts of black plastic in their vegetable production here, which has some negative side effects. But we found some Amish producers who do a very good job of using cover crops, heavy mulches. So we like to work with those individuals, your champions, to kind of set an example and host field days there where they can have the farmer-to-farmer sharing of knowledge without it being us who are trying to push a certain agenda.
Okay, thanks. And there was one comment, if you didn't see it in the chat, that said, agree with Ben. Many Amish men have an understanding that us English operate differently and understand women can have a professional role and are knowledgeable in our culture. So thanks for that comment. And if there aren't any more questions, I will end this session. Feel free to email me if you need to get hold of Ben or Ka. And thank you very much, both of you, for your time. And I'm glad that you people were able to attend. So thanks. I'll end it right now. Thank you.
Thank you.